Well, welcome everybody. I want to introduce to you, we've got a couple of great speakers here today from Raymond Group. And so we've got Susan West, and she primarily with the human resource functions and leadership talent with small to mid-sized companies. And Susan focuses on providing the expertise and guidance for addressing and improving human resource business performances for clients. And then we also have Ray Poirier. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that properly.
Wow, you even got it pronounced the correct way, the French way. Wow.
Awesome.
Congratulations. Wow, I'm impressed.
So Ray provides tax planning, compliance, and financial reporting services to closely held businesses, high net worth individuals, S corporations, partnerships, and corporations. He also assists clients with related payroll tax filings and Affordable Care Act reporting. So I think that they both are going to be very knowledgeable and able to answer some of the questions that we have prepared, and hopefully some of the questions that you guys have for them as well. So the first question I have is, what is available to real estate agents in the way of relief right now?
Well, I'll start this off with, it's been a crazy about 3 to 4 weeks, everybody. If you would have told me back before St. Patrick's Day, this was going to happen, I would have looked at you like you were crazy. I never would have expected the whole state to essentially shut down, let alone the whole country. And so there's been multiple relief acts passed that can benefit everybody here, your realtors. There's 2 big things that are out there. The first one is the EIDL loan program, and that stands for the Economic Injury and Disaster Loan Emergency Advance Program. That was the one that came out first, and you can apply for that one by going to the SBA website, and that one allows you go online, you fill out the form, you can get up to a $10,000 advance. Then roughly 2 weeks ago, the CARES Act passed on a Friday at 4:30, and that included what was called a PPP loan, or the Paycheck Protection Plan, that allowed people to apply for grants out there that can be, or I should say loans, that can later be forgiven. That was the biggest part of the act. And there's a lot going on with this, and that's what you probably hear all your friends out there scrambling for right now, trying to find bankers to assist them. What the PPP, it's actually a PPP 7A loan. That is what is categorized. And what happens essentially here within this loan is that you're applying for the loan, which is based off a calculation, your average payroll cost, which does include health insurance and retirement. You got your average payroll cost, you divide it by 12 to get your monthly, and times by 2.5 to get your maximum loan amount. That's the amount of the loan, you get the loan. Then you have other items. Then you have an 8-week period that starts from which gets a little even more crazy in there, which we can go into. You get the loan, on the date of the loan, you have an 8-week period then to spend these funds. And if it's for payroll, and there's restrictions on this, that amount can be forgiven. So essentially you're given the loan, you spend it on payroll, and there's a couple other factors in there, and it's free money. They help you get back on your feet during this economic disaster, and that is the spirit of the program here. So I'm guessing there's probably going to be a next question, and there's a question coming in and says, how does somebody like me apply for this loan? Well, the PPP 7A, you have to go through an SBA banker. And some people may be hearing, hey, is this money running out? Well, Congress, I believe it was $349 billion was allocated towards this program, and certain banks have hit their loan capacity. One example of that would be Wells Fargo. They were capped at lending $10 billion. Does not mean the program's done, just that bank has hit their cap. So I do tell people who do want to apply for this loan, find somebody who you have an existing banking relationship with and reach out to them. See if they can process the SBA loan, and there's some great local banks in the Lansing area that can assist with processing these loans.
Thank you, Ray. So another question that we have for you is, Does the COVID-19, the Sick Pay Family First Act, apply to our real estate agents and realtor members?
So I'll take that one, Julie. That is under the Family First, and yes, there's two acts below the overall Families First. One is the Emergency Paid Sick Leave, and one is the Emergency Family Medical Leave Expansion Act. And so both of those have components for what I would call the self-employed. And so under the Emergency Medical Leave Act, I'm going to share with you what they consider self-employed. An individual who is regularly carrying on a trade or business per the IRC 1402. It includes individuals filing a Schedule C as a sole proprietor or a single member LLC. And it includes an allocation of self-employment income from a partnership. So that's who's eligible. And then let me just make sure from the Paid Sick Leave Act, it's the same eligibility. So under the FMLA, which is only available for one reason, and that is that you're not able to go to work because you do not have daycare or your school's closed for your children under 18. And there's a lot of provisions around that, and certainly somebody who wants to utilize that, we can certainly get into those details, but that's the only reason on the Expanded Family Medical Leave Act that somebody would have an additional 12 weeks, the first 2 weeks being unpaid, and then the balance of the 10 weeks would be available for a 2/3 credit of your what's called daily net self-employment income up to $200 per day. And that was be up to a maximum value of $10,000. Now, how they've defined the daily net earnings from your self-employment are calculated by dividing your net earnings for the year by 260. So you'll have to do some calculations to understand how much of that credit for the number of days you're using could be applied on your quarterly filing. Well, actually, for the self-employment folks, I believe you apply that. Let me make sure. I believe that's where you file it against your final return. So I'd actually, Julie, like to follow up with some details once we get this sorted. We're preparing a frequently asked questions, and certainly we can forward that out to you with a little bit more detail. But I'll at least give you the high level. For the paid sick leave portion, which is 80 hours or up to 10 days, that one is up to a maximum of 511 per day or a total of 5,110. Now, this particular reason or act has 6 reasons for which you could apply. Of those 6 reasons, you would need to make sure that you're looking at it. So when you're identifying why you're going on to the sick days, that you have clear which one of those 6 is really applying. Actually, a number 6 is not even one that's fully defined right now. It's left as an open-ended item defined by the Secretary of Labor for later, in case there's some additional symptoms or conditions related to COVID-19 that we don't foresee right now. So in both those cases, you would have an opportunity to provide or use it yourself based on your daily net earnings. And there's 3 of them which are at that 511 cap, and then the other 3 are at the $200 day cap. So that's probably a good start.
So we have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I have one. Is the application for the PPP available for 1099 independent contractors?
Yes, it is out there. Some banks are not making it applicable though till tomorrow. I've talked to most of the major banks, and they're kind of before they started accepting single member LLCs. It wasn't until this week, and by tomorrow, to my knowledge, most of them are accepting applications for single member LLCs and sole practitioners there. I saw there was a second question that happened to pop up too. Oh, question right now, what website? I haven't seen on the SBA. You actually have to reach out to the bankers themselves, the SBA bankers. It's not out there on the website. The one that is out there on the website is the EIDL loan, and that one's on the website, but for the PPP, you must reach out directly to an SBA banker.
Okay, good. I think that answered that question. Go ahead, Julie. I know you had some more.
Yeah. So moving on to unemployment.
Favorite topic.
Yeah. How can real estate agents apply for unemployment right now?
Yeah, so under the what's called the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance under the CARES Act, there was actually some broadened eligibility. And that eligibility actually included those who typically are not available for unemployment, including the self-employed, independent contractors, gig workers, those folks who usually are not eligible, or they've already exhausted their unemployment benefit for a different reason. So those of you that are now had your revenue stop, you are actually eligible to apply. What we're learning, however, is many states don't have the system profile built for you actually to go in and apply. We're finding that many folks are struggling to get into the system. I would say continue to, especially here in Michigan, go online and check it out. Make sure you're, looking to get online. Usually between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. there's more access to the online sites. But what's available to you is that you would have up to, well, initially there was 20 weeks. The states broadened it to 26, and then the federal government gave it actually another 13 weeks, which would allow the program to go through July 31st for the additional $600. And so let me talk about that for a moment, because I know this is of a lot of interest. Once you get on board and you actually begin to identify based on your earnings that you submit, you're able to get what's called a weekly benefit amount. And that weekly benefit amount will be decided by the state based on a COVID-related reason that you are applying. I'll come back to what those reasons are. But once that's established, if you have $1 of eligibility under the state funds, you'll be eligible for the flat $600 that the federal government is feeding to the state. And that $600 would continue every week that you receive at least $1 from the state through July 31st. If for some reason your income for a particular week exceeds the weekly benefit amount, and you would not be eligible for a state unemployment compensation benefit, then you would not receive the $600. Now, what we do know is for independent contractors, those self-employed, there is a self-certify kind of category where you would actually put in the knowledge that they're going to be asking. Let me see, I want to get this for you. The claims would be retroactive to March 29th, even though right now the systems aren't really lined up to start delivering payment. Once you're applied and you put your last day worked, then it would at least go back to March 29th. What the Department of Labor is suggesting is that you show your income over the past 5 quarters, which is typically a period upon which the benefits are based. They want to have you consider using your 1099 tax documents. So that would obviously come back from 2019. Any bank records showing checks or deposits from employers or earnings information from your, your special projects that you might getting from your work. And it also says that any workers, especially those who rely on tips, may also have to attest to what they made. So what we know is that right now there may not be the opportunity to sort of upload documents. It's all going to be information you type in, but you would be responsible for providing that documentation if there's ever an investigation or an audit kind of scenario that the UIA, I would imagine months later, will do, because right now they're just trying to get us processed. What we do know is there's a fraud provision in the CARES Act that's flowing down to the states. And I just caution everybody to please be as accurate and clear as you can, because you would hate to get some money and then ultimately find that you couldn't substantiate it. And now all of a sudden you're in a situation where you may have to pay back some funds. So documenting where you're getting your numbers, getting those records well organized so you could promptly respond if you needed to. But the good news is there's an opportunity for you to receive self-employment, unemployment comp. So Julie, I have one more thing I want to share, and that is the 6 reasons for which are qualified under this pandemic assistance program from the CARES Act. These reasons are sort of broader than what the state already has in place. So very commonly, you've been diagnosed with COVID-19 or experiencing the COVID-19 symptoms, and that would be where you're actually going out to get a medical diagnosis from a healthcare provider. A member of your household has been diagnosed with COVID-19, and once again, you would have a healthcare provider note that would indicate that. You're providing care for a family member or member of the household that's been diagnosed with COVID-19. Number 4, a member of the household for which they have primary caregiving responsibility is unable to attend school or another facility that's been closed as a direct result of COVID-19. And because of this closure, they're unable to work. Number 5, they're unable to work because of a quarantine imposed as a result of the COVID-19. That one has gotten a little confusion because initially in Michigan, we had the state order that came down as the stay home, stay safe on March 24th. That particular order didn't qualify. It was more targeted to the differentiation of essential infrastructure kind of services provided by an employer versus non-essential, and as a result of that, we as employees were either subject to not working because our business closed. The state order would not qualify under that circumstance to individuals. Now, under the order that just came out on April 3rd, Executive Order 2020-36, that provided a new quarantine description. Actually, it was 2020-21, I believe, or 24, and plus 36. I know it gets really confusing. But under those two, it defines how many days the state is recommending you stay home if you've been exposed. There's a 3-day test, there's a 7-day test, and there's a 14-day test. Any one of those, if you're in a quarantine situation, after that, if you have work available, then you should be returning to work. But they've sort of defined what are those individual cases, and that would apply under a reason. Now, going back to the list, the 6th one is unable to work because they've been advised to quarantined by a healthcare provider. So you're showing symptoms, you go get the medical advice. The doctor says, yep, please stay home. We've seen people get that for just 14 days. We've seen it up to a month, especially if they've, for example, just come off of surgery. There are a variety of reasons, but if you have a healthcare provider note, that would be something that would say how long they recommend you stay off work. This is the number 7 is probably the most expanded reason beyond what states had before. Scheduled to start a job but are unable to do so as a result of the COVID-19 public health emergency. So once again, that could be applied to our independent contractor, self-employed. We had a project coming and now it's not able to start. So could be very much a reason. The next one is become a major support for a household because the breadwinner in the household has died as a direct result of COVID-19. And the last one is quit their job as a direct result of COVID-19. So those are the 9 reasons, some of them new beyond the current state eligibility, for which the state now will be looking at for you as the individual who's applying for unemployment. Do you meet one of those 9 criteria? Okay,
I think we have a couple questions.
Okay, good.
One of them is about an independent contractor that's an LLC. Do they still qualify for the payroll protection program?
Yes, they do. An independent contractor who is an LLC does apply, and they would just have to apply through any SBA bank, and they can do that this week. And I see that there is a second question out there for an example.
Yep.
And in the example, the question is, if you had a realtor who made $100,000 in gross commission and had $30,000 of expenses last year. So your net self-employment income in this example is $70,000. So we have $70,000 of the income. We submit the application. We have our tax return from last year that shows we paid self-employment tax on the $70,000. We divide that number by 12 to get what was our average monthly income in 2019. Our average monthly income would come out to be roughly $5,833. We get to multiply that by 2.5 for the amount we get to apply for a loan amount. That's going to come out to $14,583. Well, if we start looking at what our payroll was last year, our average payroll a month in that scenario, I should say payroll or compensation is the correct term there, is $11,666. That could be forgiven. But you're going to say, but wait, Ray, you just said I'm eligible for a loan for $14,583. Well, we would have $2,916 left over in that example that couldn't be used. It's not matching our payroll or our compensation records. That remaining amount at this point, and this is changing every day, is going to be reclassified to you as a loan. That loan amount is going to be for 2 years, and currently it's at 1%. To warn people, that has changed, I believe, about twice a day over the past week. So we went from 4% at 10 years down to 2 years, then down to 2 years at 0.5%, now 2 years at 1%. The question out there: received no commission in February, March, received some in April with no future income, may receive some in September. How does this affect me? And when can I apply? You can apply as of today, first of all, and you're going to say, I'm not receiving any commission in February or March due to COVID. They're going to be looking, as of this moment, the current regs are saying they're looking at your 2000. You have a choice. You can pick either 2019 or past 12 calendar months from the point you were effective, because that's where it's currently sitting.
So that might also apply to unemployment. So let me address that from an unemployment point of view. So from an unemployment point of view, you can apply now, right? As soon as the site allows you to apply as a self-employed or independent contractor. If you have commission in a period, any particular period, then that particular week you would declare that commission. It would affect your state unemployment weekly benefit amount and could then affect the 600 federal. So if you get 0, remember from the state point of view, you would get 0 on the 600. If you, in fact, the 600 only runs through July 31st. So the state unemployment could run longer, but the $600 benefit as of right now would only go through July 31st.
I see we have another question popping up right now. It's in the example, let's say my compensation was only 11K, but I got approved for a $15,000 loan. Do I have to take the full 15K? No, the answer is you only have to take, you could only apply just for the 11,000. You don't have to take the maximum. That's just what you can be approved for. You can work with your banker to determine whatever the actual loan amount is. Now there is a cap on here. I do have to mention, you can take if the loan does cap out at $8,000 for per individual of $8,333 a month, roughly 100K worth of income a year. You cannot be compensated more than that.
Okay, do we have any further questions before we hit our 12:30 end of the meeting?
We actually had a question come through on Facebook Live. What about part-time realtor for unemployment?
Yeah, same scenario would apply. I would go ahead and go in and indicate your status on the website as it is requested. Usually there's a drop down that says, what is your reason for filing? What is your status? What is your social security number? They're going to ask for a variety of information to have you set up your account. I would then identify the same thing. What is the number of hours? What is my daily net that you've earned? And then it would just, my understanding is it will just be prorated based on your weekly benefit amount. And then the same scenario would happen. You would, if you get $1 of state unemployment, you would get the 600. The state unemployment, though, would vary based on what your overall hours and pay would be.
I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. As the last I knew, last night, there was still not a website available for self-employed filings. Is that correct? Has that been updated yet with the state?
You know, I haven't checked in the last 24 hours. My understanding is that the unemployment site, that particular link for Michigan is where to go keep updated on that. I knew that a day or so ago, yes, it wasn't available, but it would be for you to continue to check. They're all scrambling to get those systems updated because they weren't set up for this kind of category of worker.
And also, if you've already applied and been denied, you do not need to reapply. Is that correct?
That's correct. What we do know is for those employees that initially applied, they were getting denials for a variety of reasons, and it was partly because the reason they selected wasn't related to possibly a COVID-19 scenario. And we, at that time, were asking employees to go back and reapply. What we learned is between when the people started to be laid off and when the actual unemployment site was updated for COVID-19 reasons, the drop-down box didn't have that opportunity, and now it does. So at one point we were asking employees to go back in and re-pick, if you will, reselect the proper drop-down box of the reason for filing. But now, of course, the Michigan team has come back out and said you don't need to reapply. I'm sure there'll be more direction as they get their site clearly representing all the workers that need to be represented. So I'd keep your eyes open for that.
Ray, there was a question that came in. If you have 2 separate LLCs, can you file for 2 separate payroll protection loans?
That is a good question. I mean, the question there is going to have a couple parts to it. I wish it was a simple answer of just saying yes or no, but it depends on the activity types. I mean, do you have two forms of self-employment income reported on your return? That's what it is, and you're still going to be subject to the maximums of one. You would work with your bank, your SBA banker there, to show them and determine if the entities do have to be consolidated under the related entity rules, or are they truly separate. And you're going to be capped out, like I said, relative to the earnings. And you have to show, because I see it appearing right there for rental companies, you have to show that you were actually impacted by COVID. So are people no longer paying you rent currently because of COVID? And you're not going to be getting that money at a future date. You have to show damages at this point. And that might be a little harder to do in the rental world.
So Ray, one thing that you may have mentioned and I missed it is, if you do get approved for the payroll protection program, and during that 8-week period, if for some reason you also use the paid sick leave, that 80 hours, or the eligibility for the Emergency Family Medical Leave Act, anytime that you get you use and apply against your taxes, you can't double dip. So those hours and that payroll would have to come out of your forgiveness loan amount. So that's there's that whole clarity about double dipping. So I just wanted to make sure that even though you have both things available, you would need to pull out those particular hours if you actually use them during that 8-week period.
You are 100% spot on there, Susan. There is several anti-abuse clauses within these acts that stop people from double dipping. So when you're going through the whole process here, I like to tell people, hey, I got this loan amount for up to $20,000 if it can be forgiven. And then I'm also going to use this COVID sick pay over here to take care of it. Well, you're essentially double dipping at that point. So if I got $2,000 worth of COVID sick pay paid to me by the feds, and then I had this $20,000 forgivable loan, no, the forgivable portion has just dropped down to 18. There's no double dipping. You can't, same thing with the EIDL loan. You get a forgivable portion from the I'm going to use the same example. I have a $20,000 forgivable PPP loan, and then I get an EIDL loan, and $5,000 of that is forgivable. My forgivable portion of the PPP just dropped down to 15. So there is several clauses in there to stop people from double dipping and taking advantage of the situation. I do see there's a question of, do I have a list of SBA bankers? I do not have a full list, but within that, I do like to tell people, if you want to continue to use your existing banking relationship, if possible, if you're already doing all your banking with Huntington or Independent or Chase, I would recommend going through them first. Banks are most likely to help out people who have been with them prior to February 1st, and those are the people who are getting put to the front of the line with these.
Also, to go along with that, right, they have all of your information, and so it makes the loan process much easier if you're already using the bank that you bank with the most. There's another question for Sue. What was the date of layoff for realtors? So would they consider that the first shelter-in-place date?
Well, I think it depends on the individual. If your work stopped as it relates to when a particular business that was providing you with some of the work ended, it would be whatever your revenue date stopped. So for many, this was even back to March 12th. Many were March 18th, many were March 24th. So it sort of depends on your individual case as to when your revenue stopped, your last day worked, if you would. That's what I would look at using for your individual scenario. There's not one set date. What I do know is March 29th is the retro date for the 600. If you had a weekly benefit amount from March 29th forward, again, that you get paid at least $1, you'd be eligible for the 600. But the other thing I want to just make clear is that this is totally up to the state to make these decisions. I'm providing you the best guidance I can, but those individuals at the Michigan or any other state's unemployment offices are the ones who will really be qualifying you to say what your weekly benefit amount is and whether you're eligible. So that would be where the bottom line really rests.
There was a comment actually too that you can find a list on the SBA website for each state for those banks. So if you wanted to check that out, that would be a good resource for you. We have a question that came through in the Facebook Live. Does it affect our employer if one was to try and collect benefits?
It does not affect your employer. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Susan, on the update. As long as the employer has reached out and applied on the MIWAM website that they are an affected employer. If the employer fails to go out there and register themselves as an affected employer, their benefits will be charged against their account. Or the unemployment benefits will be charged against their account, and their rate will increase.
Yeah, to add to that, what we're finding is some states, and Georgia specifically right now, is asking that employers actually apply for unemployment on behalf of their employees. Now, that would not necessarily include somebody who's an independent contractor because they're not necessarily considered their employer. But if you're a W-2 employee, I'm seeing that some of the states are asking the employers to take a broader responsibility. Here in Michigan, that's not the case yet, but you're correct. The employer needs to be registering on MyWAM and making sure that their account is in a positive state, meaning they've paid their payroll taxes into that account. But there's also ways to actually get that updated and fixed, but many employers hadn't registered online, and right now that's a primary communication piece for both the unemployment folks who are trying to certify that the employer is registered and up to date. And so yeah, there's an interconnection. You're absolutely right, Ray.
Looks like we have a few more questions popping in there that I'm unable to see.
I don't see any on our side right now. I'm not sure if Amanda has any more on Facebook, but it looks like from our side, we don't have any further questions. Amanda?
One actually just popped up as we were speaking on the Facebook Live group. I contacted my bank about an SBA loan and was told I needed an LLC to receive assistance. For the EIDL loan, do I have to have an LLC to apply for that as well?
You do not need to have an LLC. Well, I'm going to take a step back here. This loan, it's going to depend on the bank. If a bank told them no on an LLC, I would definitely reach out to another banker to see how they are assisting people at this moment, because it is available for sole proprietors, to my knowledge, as of this moment. The application for sole proprietors was not out till this week, so it could have been a miscommunication there on the timing of it. So I would recommend reaching back out there. But the bigger part is if you have not been paying self-employment tax, you cannot apply for this for a PPP loan.
This is somebody who was self-employed for a long time. I joined Raymond in this organization a little over a year ago, but I owned my own business for 15 years previously. And I found that understanding how to structure my business as an LLC and as an S Corp and how I paid myself was really important to how all of these benefits play out. So this might be a good opportunity for people to take some time to really understand what is the best structure so that going forward, you can find a way to potentially pay yourself with some W-2 wages, and then automatically then you have a history, you're paying into an account, and certainly taking some time to talk with your your accountant or your tax advisors. But I know in the past, getting that structure set up was really, really beneficial to me and allowed me to take advantage of some of these programs much easier. So probably a good time to sort of reevaluate your personal structure for your business.
So we have another question that popped up. How does the forgivable aspect of the EIDL work?
The EIDL is going to be based off, so the EIDL is it's not as clear cut as the PPP. This is one you're going to be applying for. When you apply for it, you're getting an application. It does have a cap of $10,000 on it, last time I checked. And with that cap, you're also going to have to show substantial paperwork on what the funds were used for. Are they applicable sources? The biggest thing is maintaining either employee compensation or keeping the business afloat during this time period. There's items in there such as rent, insurance, and interest, but this is always changing.
Okay, thank you. Amanda, do you see any more questions in Facebook Live group?
No, no more questions on this end.
And I don't have anything further. Ray or Sue, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Thank you, everybody, for your time today. It was great speaking with everybody. I would highly recommend you talk to your business advisor and banker more about these loans. Everybody's loans, unemployment, everything, everyone's individual situation is different. We'd love to hear your feedback on us. Let us know if we've covered the topics you enjoyed and what you'd like to hear more of in the future.
I agree. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to help people through this myriad of information overload and really getting a little clarity on what some next steps are. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Just as a reminder, we have another webinar tomorrow afternoon, and we will be speaking with Senator Barrett and Senator Hertel, and they'll be telling us what's going on at the state level. Thanks, everybody. Have a great
Maybe
day.
I'll attend that one.
Great.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.